I expect we will find out more on this topic when Donald Trump takes the stage about 6 o'clock tonight in Macomb County, Michigan. It's his first real giant get-together since taking office. It marks his 100th day in office. What will he say? Apparently, Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, says a deal is in place to ease tariffs on automobiles. Could be a big deal. Glenn Stevens is joining me. He's Executive Director of MichAuto and Vice President of the Automotive and Mobility Initiative at the Detroit Chamber. Good to have you here, Glenn. Thank you for taking the time. What do you make of this? Howard Lutnick says they have a deal in place to ease tariffs because come Saturday, if they don't, tariffs could jump to 25% on a whole list of items, 100 or more different items. What do you make of this?
Well, first, good morning, Steve. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Good morning.
I was listening earlier today, and you made a comment. You said things are not always as they seem, and
I did say that.
And we do know that with this president. So we expected a lot of change. We've gotten a lot of change, and one of the things that's happened is the tariffs have stacked up. And what we're seeing right now, and probably get an announcement official today, is that auto companies will not have to pay multiple tariffs on what is happening right now. So this is a good signal from the administration.
Yeah, it is a good signal. I think Wall Street will welcome that. I mean, you look at the economic activity in Michigan, for example. The auto sector accounts for $1.05. About 20% of the economic activity in Michigan is tied to the automotive industry. And I mentioned this a moment ago. If you were listening, I'm going to repeat it. General Motors CEO Mary Barra said in a statement, they're grateful to President Trump for his support of the U.S. automotive industry and the millions of Americans who depend on it. We believe the president's leadership is helping level the playing field for companies like GM and allowing us to invest even more in the U.S. economy. Of course, GM, American company, Ford the same. Stellantis, Chrysler, you like to think of as an American company, but not really, right? So for GM, for Mary Barra to say that, for the UAW to say we support the tariffs, it's not often you get these two groups on the same side of an issue, but here we are, Glenn.
Boy, so much to unpack there. I think, yes, I did hear your comments, and I did read Mary Barra's comments. What I think the industry needs more than anything is certainty, and it's a long lead time, highly capital intensive industry, very globally complex, and it doesn't shift and move overnight. So when it has certainty, and there appears to be more and more uncertainty coming to us, it thrives on that. Now, I hope the markets do react well, but it's really important for these companies to compete. We have 12 assembly plants in Michigan. We have $348 billion of economic contribution from our industry to Michigan. And yes, 1 in 5 jobs is tied to the industry. So it is really significant here, and this has been a big issue for us.
What would you like to hear Donald Trump say today, then? If Howard Lutnick is to be believed, and I don't have any reason not to believe that he would be right about this. Look, the president doesn't want 25% tariffs on automobiles. What he wanted was leverage, my guess, being an observer here. He wanted to force change so that, you might see a General Motors vehicle, a Suburban, a Yukon, driving in Tokyo or Berlin or Beijing, for that matter, right? I mean, we want the ability to sell vehicles globally, not just here at home. I mean, we know how it works for years now. And if I go back, if I'm not mistaken, Lyndon Johnson put a 25% tariff on light-duty pickup trucks imported into this country in 1965, right? That's why Nissan builds here. It's why Toyota builds here, correct?
That's called the chicken tax. Funny name, but a lot of history to it, and it's still in place. Tariffs that are deployed strategically have worked through the centuries. The broad tariffs is what the industry's been struggling with in that stack up. But, America First trade policy came out on January 20th. That was the president's roadmap. We read it. We looked at it. What we were surprised by, though, in the days that ensued was the magnitude and the velocity of the tariffs. But no one should argue that stronger borders and building more manufacturing in Michigan is stronger. So what would we like to see today, to your question?
Yes.
Yes, we'd like to see the easing of the tariffs. And we'd also really would like to see us get back to a strong USMCA trade agreement with Canada and Mexico.
What do you think happens there, by the way? Obviously, upheaval in Canada. And a lot of people are going to blame Donald Trump for the Liberals winning in Canada yesterday. It looks like that's the way it's going to play out. I don't know if that's fair across the board. You have candidates that run for seats and they either win or lose. I'm not sure Donald Trump's comments made a definitive impact there, maybe. But when you look at this across the board, you want to lower tariffs, you want to equal the playing field and make sure that, well, that we can do well here in America, right?
Well, the Canada thing's a bit of a head scratcher because they're not competition. In fact, the trade surplus
Right.
that we have with them is pretty significant. Here's the issue with Canada and Mexico. Over the past decades, we have evolved into a trade bloc which is very strong. And the president, in his first term, put in place a new trade agreement, which we needed. NAFTA was outdated, it had problems, it needed to be updated. But the USMCA agreement is working. It still needs to be tweaked and modified. We think it can be stronger, particularly on the Mexico side with regards to Chinese companies coming through Mexico. We have to fix that. But stronger together is the way we look at this trade bloc. And that's what we hope we do get back to that. I'm optimistic about that. There's a lot going on, as you know.
There is. I guess we'll have to wait to see what the president says in Macomb County a little bit later today. He's going to take the stage about 6. And then, Glenn, I'd like to have you back here in the next few days to see what happens. My guess is those tariffs set to take effect on Saturday are not going to happen. That would be my guess. Of course, I haven't seen the president's remarks ahead of time. That's just my gut feeling. He wants to improve. Look, he considers Michigan to be ground zero in all the elections, including the next one in the midterms. So he wants to make sure Michigan's in good shape. Glenn Stevens, greatly appreciate you being here today.
Thank you.
Really appreciate that. From MichAuto, that's part of the Detroit Chamber, by the way, and he is the Vice President of Automotive and Mobility Initiatives there. Good insight. And it's all intertwined, the auto industry, certainly, between Canada and the United States, Mexico as well. I would expect the president has a plan to avoid those tariffs come Saturday. We'll see if I'm right come about 6:15 tonight. I'll be covering it for you on Real America's Voice. Steady coverage from 3 until 8 tonight, Real America's Voice TV. You can also stream it on the net in a variety of different places. I'll be right back.